South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. I'm Jeff Parles. He is Ryan McCormick over on the other side of the desk. We got a good show lined up for you here today, getting you ready for Week 7 in the National Football League and Week 8 in college football. How about that? 7 and 8. Again, remember, there's an extra week of college football this year because of the extra week in the month of November this year. So about halfway home in college football.
And
crazy
a third of the way through in the NFL regular season.
Yeah, more than the third now with Week 7 getting underway with quite the football game that we'll get into in a little bit. Our friend Dwayne Colucci's with us at 3:40 as he always is. But boy, it is, Ryan, it is a doozy tonight, and I don't mean it in the fun way here, down in the Big Easy tonight. Could be fun if you have
depends
some
on
winning,
the perspective.
if you have some winning bets. So let's just start there. And we'll start with the New Orleans Saints welcoming in the Denver Broncos. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that 3 of the 6 best potential players in this game are not playing tonight.
Yep.
The best player in this game would normally be Patrick Surtain II. He's out with a concussion.
Yep.
I would say the 3rd best player in this game, Chris Olave, he's also out with a concussion. And then potentially one of the most exciting players in the league that no one knows about, who no one will know about until next year again, because Rashid Shaheed is out for the year with a significant knee injury. He had surgery earlier today. He's on IR. He's done. It's funny, Derek Carr ends up being mentioned 4th on this list, but that's the reason New Orleans is not favored in this game is Derek Carr is out with that side injury for the 2nd consecutive game, and the Denver Broncos, because of it, Ryan, they're 3-3. New Orleans has lost 4 in a row, and the Denver Broncos are favored on the road on a short week with basically as significant of travel that the NFL allows now on a Thursday night week.
Yeah, and I think for the Broncos, it's a Sean Payton revenge game. He's going back to New Orleans for the first time. Could be a revenge game for the Saints themselves, getting back at Sean Payton. But also Dennis Allen was Sean Payton's defensive coordinator from 2015 to 2021 and ultimately ended up replacing Sean Payton as the New Orleans Saints head coach. So what better night for Sean Payton to make about himself than Drew Brees' retirement night in New Orleans?
Oh, man. That's the hell of a night. I totally forgot that number 9 was getting retired tonight, and rightfully so. Quite honestly, took him too long.
Yeah.
As soon as Brees stopped playing after the 2020 season, that first time a full crowd was in there in 21, should have been retired right away.
Yep.
greatest player in New Orleans Saints franchise history. Let's
just
be
what he
real
did
with
for the community as well.
Yeah, everything
Drew Brees
should have
was
been there with
amazing
ease.
for New Orleans.
So Ryan, look at this from the traditional sense, and then we'll get into the props wise tonight because I think this is whatever your heart desires feels right here tonight.
Yeah.
So I said this morning that I would lean to taking 3 with New Orleans. Those 3s are basically gone.
Yep.
If they're around, they're 3 -20 or 3 -125. So you're laying significant juice on New Orleans if you're wanting a 3 at this point. 2.5 with Denver, makes the point spread completely unbettable for me at this point.
Okay.
If you're going 2.5, don't do it. I would just wait for in-game and see what the heck happens in this game. Because with 2 rookie quarterbacks starting, Bo Nix, who's been starting since week 1, and Spencer Rattler getting his second straight start, last week's game for New Orleans made no sense. They scored 27 points in the second quarter.
Yeah.
A lot of that was off of nonsense. Shaheed had a punt return. Yeah. Baker Mayfield's turnovers set up 10 of those 27 points.
Yep.
Really only 10 of those points came off of non-nonsense, if that makes any sense, Ryan. Last week from Tampa. And then Tampa nearly put 600 yards on them and 8.3 yards per play in a 51-27 win for Tampa at the Dome last week. I just, from a traditional sense, it is very hard to find an angle in this game here tonight because I don't trust Denver's offense. They're without their best defensive player, and I don't know what the heck we're getting out of New Orleans tonight.
Well, we're going to see if I can convince you to be on the Broncos tonight. I know it's moved from the 3 to the 2.5. I'm actually on the Broncos to win this one. Last week we saw road favorites, closing numbers, go 9-1 against the spread on the road. Road favorites 9-1 last week, and we start this week with a road favorite. But made a mention earlier of Sean Payton and Dennis Allen, the 2 head coaches for these 2 teams. They worked together in New Orleans from 2015 to 2021. I do want to compare these 2 because I think the 2 head coaches are the telling point in this game with 2 rookie quarterbacks. So you look at Dennis Allen as a head coach with the Raiders. He had 4 game losing streaks in every season with the Raiders. He was fired in his 3rd season after the 4th loss in a row. In the past 2 seasons with the Saints, he's had at least a 3-game losing streak in both. And this is coming into this game on a 3-game losing streak. So it could be their 5th 4th-game losing streak in the 6 seasons with Dennis Allen as a head coach.
Is that good, Ryan?
It is not. So if you look at Dennis Allen in total, he is 26-50 as a head coach.
Oh, boy.
You compare that to Sean Payton. Let me break this down even more. If you take the worst seasons Sean Payton has ever had as a head coach, you pick apart the years, naming random years, but 2006, 2011, whatever the worst combination may be, he's 5 games below 500.
Yeah.
He is a 163 and 101 head coach. Dennis Allen is 24 games below 500. Sean Payton is a massively better head coach in this one, so I'm all over the Broncos.
So I will give you everything you just said because you are 100% right. Even if you just watch, and again, this is not the same Sean Payton that was in New Orleans. I will say
he also had Drew Brees.
Of course, absolutely. The 2 of them together.
Yes.
He took a franchise that had never won a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl. Quite frankly, should have been in multiple Super Bowls when it was all said and done, and somehow only made it to one. A PI call that wasn't obviously kept them from one. And quite frankly, if they had beaten Brady and the Bucs in the 2020 season, I think they would have went on the road and beat Green Bay in the NFC title game a week later.
Okay.
I don't know if they would have beat Kansas City, but who knows? All those teams might have beat Kansas City at that point with how bad their O-line injuries were. But I'll just say this though, and look, Sean Payton has done a few things this year that high-end coaches don't do. Just look at week 2 with the idiocy with not onside kicking against Pittsburgh. He basically ended the game with doing that. Bo Nix has not really shown much improvement. He's really only played 1 half-decent game, and that was the game against Tampa. Last week, all of his numbers were in the game where it was a 3-score game. The Chargers just stopped playing in that game last week. When that game was a game, Bo Nix was averaging 2.2 yards an attempt. And so when he's playing in games that are still like competitive,
Right.
other than against the Raiders. The Raider game, actually, I'll give him that. He played well against the Raiders, especially in the second half. But other than that, he's looked like a rookie quarterback, and a bad one at that. Now, look, it's hard to compare to the dudes who are picked number 1 and 2 because Jaden Daniels has been as good as anyone in the league, and Caleb Williams the last 3 weeks has been awesome the last 3 weeks.
Should have won NFC Player of the Week, but it's fine.
It's okay. It's okay. The win's more important for you,
yes,
Ryan
yes,
McCormick.
yes, it is.
But look, I guess I'm kind of arguing for the under here.
Okay.
I guess that when we're all said and done here, the under probably is okay. But these Denver games the last few weeks have gone over because of nonsense in the second half.
Yeah.
So I a little bit caution here, and again, like Denver without Surtain, and you saw it last week. They're not able to do things with that pass rush that they would normally be able to do.
Right.
And you may be thinking out there, what is Jeff talking about?
Well, coverage sacks.
Exactly. You know one half of the football field is not going to be penetrable if Surtain's out there. Now, you go from the best cover corner in the NFL to a mediocre corner. Regardless of who's out there for Denver, they don't have depth at that position. It's a whole different ballgame. So that's why I haven't go full blown into the under here, because Spencer Rattler, I thought looked okay last week. I'm not saying he played well, but
the second quarter,
I said, well, the hell second quarter was illogical, Ryan. But it'll be fascinating to see, and we'll have more official picks as we go through, at least from a traditional sense as we go through this. We'll get Dwayne's thoughts also from behind the counter. But I want to go into the props for this game, and we always talk about anytime touchdowns, my friend.
Yeah, we do.
We're on quite the heater right now, my friend. If you listen to us on Monday, did pretty well for you on Monday night.
Last Thursday.
Yeah, Monday, of course, Josh Allen, easy.
Alan
Lazard did it the hard way, but
Garrett
got it
Wilson.
there. And then who was our third one?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. There we go. 3 for 3 a week ago on Monday. And you're right, last Thursday we did very well as well. We also did well the week before with Shepard for Tampa Bay. This one's a little more complicated because, as you see in the bottom of your screen, and Ryan McCormick doing a good job putting this on the sheet this week,
no touchdown scored
is 40-1, which is basically as low as they will go on those sort of numbers. Now, there's a bunch of names that you could be looking at here and be like, these aren't real names. Bub Means isn't a real name. Deshaun Deli isn't a real name. Just kind of shows where the depth for both of these teams is at the moment. And Means caught a touchdown last week. That was Rattler's first career touchdown, and of course was Bub Means as well, the product from Pitt. Look, it's very hard to find an angle in this anytime touchdown market. Normally, I look to the defensive special teams, but here's the problem. So for this defensive special teams, Shaheed's obviously gone, which changes the calculus on a New Orleans special teams touchdown. And those prices are so low for a defensive special teams angle tonight, Ryan. We're usually pushing 6-1, plus 575 on the low end. Every once in a while, you pop a 525. Here you're at 4-1 and plus 425 respectively on Denver and New Orleans. Man, I know you may be looking at that, but that's hard to do all the way through on this, Ryan.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially talking about no Pat Surtain in this one, you're losing your best DB, so it's a little risky, and you're not doing anything more than pizza money on something that large anyway. So, but the players that I do like, maybe a little bit of a dartboard throw, but 3 guys for you. Juwan Johnson.
Okay,
the Saints,
no problem with that one.
Tight end for the Saints. Foster Moreau, tight end for the Saints. And Troy Franklin, the wide receiver for the Broncos. Troy Franklin has caught at least a 20-yard pass from Bo Nix in each of the last 2 weeks. He's getting more and more plays on the field, so more play time for those 2 Oregon Duck rookies. Mm-hmm. So I do like the chance for Troy Franklin to get behind the secondary and maybe catch a deep ball for a touchdown. And then Foster Moreau has started every game this year for the New Orleans Saints. He's lost snaps consistently pretty much every week. But last week, Spencer Rattler's first start, Spencer Rattler went 7 for 12 outside the pocket for 111 yards. That is the most by a Saints quarterback since at least 2016. Derek Carr in weeks 1 through 5 had 58 passing yards outside the pocket. So Spencer Rattler is going to break plays, extend plays, and trying to find Foster Moreau, who's had to work with him a little more in the practice when Derek Carr was healthy, and now getting the time on the field with Spencer Rattler being the starter, and Juwan Johnson, the two tight ends, Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson for the Saints. The Broncos are allowing the 5th most targets to tight ends this season and the 7th most yards to tight ends. So both of them, I like the chance for them to score a touchdown. Plus 350 for Juwan Johnson and plus 650 for Foster Moreau.
I just want to go over to Franklin real quick because if you are not in it like we are, there are a bunch of names here tonight that are like, what is going on here? So Veli, who is plus 380, led the Broncos in receiving last week. You mentioned Franklin. Not only are him and Nick's teammates from Oregon, and Franklin has had multiple 20-plus yard plays, he also caught a touchdown last week.
He did.
So I'm with you. I would basically look to go to anyone but Cortland Sutton tonight because, Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on Sutton basically the whole game and make the other guys
That's
beat
my
him.
one worry for Cortland Sutton.
So I would look to, if you're looking in this sort of market and honestly, receiving props as well, I would look away from Sutton and I look to the down-the-board guys for Denver. And I think you're 100% right on both tight ends. I was looking for a better number on Johnson. I was really hoping for 5-1. It just hasn't happened. Best number I saw on Moreau was plus 725, but that number got scooped up pretty quickly. If you want to take one of those two guys, I don't mind it. And I will say this, if you can find a 4-1 on Bub Means, I would do it. Because there is some sort of something to be said about guys who were, again, Rattler was the third quarterback for the majority of this year before vaulting Jay Kaner. Bub Means was way down the depth chart before the injuries to the New Orleans receivers. There's something to be said about having chemistry with working with a guy on a lower practice team throughout the season, throughout training camp. Brian, would not shock me again if Means has a big night tonight. If there is someone to look for on the New Orleans side, obviously a lot of people, Ryan, are going to be looking for what is Alvin Kamara's numbers here tonight be. And if you look at the New Orleans props, and we can go right into it here. Alvin Kamara at 68.5 rushing yards is his number. 80 plus is plus 160. If you're putting rushing and receiving together, 107.5 is the number on Kamara. Plus 125 or more combined, receiving and rushing, plus 160. 4.5 catches juiced to the over at minus 150. All these numbers via DraftKings, by the way, and 37.5 on the receiving yards. This is just one of those risk tolerance ones for Kamara. We know he's the only true elite option on New Orleans, and it's going now, as long as Olave's out, that's going to be the case for Kamara. I would look to go away from him because Denver's defense basically has to think tonight, if we can take Kamara out of this game, how are they going to move the ball on us? Even with Surtain out, how are they going to move? How is New Orleans going to be able to move the ball on us? So I would be very cautious with Kamara props tonight. But with that said, when he's solely the only elite option, this could be one of those nights we very rarely see with Kamara, but Kamara could get 30 carries. And if Kamara gets 30 carries, it's going to be very hard for him not to get to 70 yards, which would basically be what he needs to go over that rushing total.
Yeah. I like, for Alvin Kamara, I really only like the over on his receptions prop. It's 4.5. He's gone over in his last 3, didn't in the weeks 2 and 3 for the Saints, and went over in week 1. So Alvin Kamara, 4.5 receptions. I do have a note. He's gone over the receptions prop in 4 of 6 this season, including last week with Rattler, has gone over in 11 of the last 19. So 4.5 over at least 5 receptions in the last 11 of 19 for Alvin Kamara. The Broncos have not allowed any running back this season to have 4 catches in a game. So if there's anybody that would know how to slow down Alvin Kamara, it may be his former coach in Sean Payton. Broncos have only allowed 100 all-purpose yards to Kenneth Walker in week 1 and J.K. Dobbins last week. So looking at those rushing yards plus receiving yards, his total of 107.5 and 125 if you want to take the plus 160. I don't know if I like the overs on those. So limited night for Alvin Kamara. I do like the tight ends. And then one more note, Dennis Allen as a head coach, home underdog, 3-14 straight up and against the spread, 3-9 as the Raiders head coach, including a straight up and against the spread loss to Sean Payton and the Saints in 2012, and now 0-5 straight up and against the spread as the Saints head coach.
Saints season on the brink, too.
Yep.
If they lose 2-5, and we kind of talked about this in our power rankings, we'll show it. I don't know how strong the top teams in the NFC are, other than maybe Detroit. But there is a lot of depth now where you're going down the board, where you look at the NFC North, everyone's 4-2 or better. You look at the NFC East, I don't love all those teams in there, but guess what? 3 of them are 500 or better right now. You look at even in New Orleans division, you have 2 teams with 4 wins already in Tampa and Atlanta. And then out west, Seattle's still sitting there at 500. The Niners are still there. There is a lot more depth than we would have expected in this conference, where if you're 2-5, good luck getting out of that hole this year. Unlike in the AFC, where there are a few 2-4 teams that I think have an opportunity to still make the playoffs in the AFC. Boy, if New Orleans loses tonight, I just don't see how they can realistically make a playoff run, especially with not knowing when Derek Carr is coming back here this year.
Not knowing when the weapons comes back is a huge issue, especially when they go into LA next week, then they go into Carolina, which should be
which LA is it next week?
The Chargers.
It is
so
okay. So
playing against the
difficult
Chargers, yes. Playing against the Panthers, then you host the Falcons, you host the Browns, and you have your bye week. So without those weapons, maybe looking to go 2-2 in this stretch. Maybe even 1-3 if things go wrong and you really only beat Carolina, maybe Cleveland. So you're looking at 3-8 going into your bye week. That is not good for the Saints and not good for Dennis Allen if he wants to remain the Saints head coach. So, it is a must win for the Saints tonight with their rookie quarterback.
There's the Saints schedule. It's not pretty, to say the very least. Moving forward, again, Carolina is a game that's winnable. The Browns is a winnable game, but there's more than enough games that they're going to be underdogs in moving forward.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift over to college real quick.
Okay.
2 games tonight. Let's start in Blacksburg with Boston College on the road at Virginia Tech tonight, and this thing's up to 8.5 now. From the 7.5 that was earlier today, and it's been a steady stream of action on the favorite. And look, Boston College last time out in the Commonwealth of Virginia, went on the road to Charlottesville and had a double-digit lead going in the fourth quarter and ended up losing an 18-0 fourth quarter in favor of Virginia. Virginia Tech, the last time out, after that gut-wrenching loss in Miami, went all the way west and hammered Stanford pretty easily in that game in Palo Alto. And just the second game in Virginia Tech history in the state of California. Thank you, Jeff Motley, for that note. But I think we're getting too aggressive at this point, Ryan. I thought at 7.5 this was fine at Boston College. I think it's definitely fine at 8.5. And if Virginia Tech runs me out here, all right, so be it. Then the talent that we thought was there at the beginning of the year has fully gotten through. And this Virginia Tech team that has lost 3 games just in absolutely horrific fashion this year. The overtime loss to Vandy, which they were leading in the fourth quarter after they came all the way back. The Rutgers game where they just got off to a slow start and couldn't get out of the hole. And in the Miami game where you're up double digits in the third quarter and then lose on the asinine fashion at the end of the Hail Mary that was not. So maybe this Virginia Tech team is just a bad luck 3-3. And maybe they're much better than Boston College. But at 8.5, I think this is more than good enough to take the Eagles plus the points on the road tonight there at Lane Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Boston College come out hot to start the season, beating Florida State at Florida State 28-13 and kind of beating up on Duquesne, having a tight battle, but ended up losing big in the fourth quarter to Missouri, but then beat Michigan State, beat Western Kentucky, and lost last week to Virginia. So they bounced back off their last loss. I would expect them to do the same. I leaned the plus 8.5, thinking Boston College is a better team, competitive team in these games. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Virginia Tech does cover. But it's a lean to Boston College in this one for me.
8.5 right now for the Eagles on the road, getting it at Lane Stadium tonight against Virginia Tech. The other game, Not as intriguing. We talked about it a little bit this morning. Up to 9.5 in most shops, except for here, which is at 9, with Marshall laying it at home in West Virginia against Georgia State. We talked about last week, Ryan. Marshall, just an absolutely disastrous loss in total command on the road against Georgia Southern. It was 23-3. They were really just in complete command the whole way, and then they were in command until they weren't. 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter for the Eagles of Georgia Southern to steal that from Marshall, 24-23. Now Georgia State, who, of course, beat Vanderbilt earlier in the year, has not had much else to write home about.
Yep.
Get blown out by Georgia Southern 2 weeks ago. They lose at home 5 days ago to Old Dominion. Not a great loss to have on the ledger. And now it's up to 9. I'll say this. I don't think we're going to touch 10 because one faraway shop that usually is pretty good at dictating where the number goes went back to 8. So I would be shocked if we see 10.
Yep.
If we see 10 in the next 36 minutes or so, Ryan, I would take it with Georgia State. If not, no thank you pre-flop. Just wait in game and see if you get a scenario here to take it with the road dog here tonight, who just, again, has been unable to get it going on the ground the last few weeks. Ryan, only 57 rushing yards a week ago against Old Dominion. And that's what usually, when Georgia State is right, that is usually how it goes, where they're able to run the football.
Yeah. No plays in either of these games for me. They're both leans. Marshall, I think, is the better team in this conference.
They are.
And last night we saw all 3 of the better teams in their conferences win. So it would just be a lean to Marshall in this one. No official plays for either of these games, but leans to the home teams.
Nice win for Western Kentucky last night on the road against Sam Houston. Good win there. UTEP finally on the board this year.
Yeah.
Taking full advantage of multiple quarterback injuries for FIU in the middle of that game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 2 nights ago, which you did not mention, a big upset with New Mexico State beating Louisiana Tech as a plus, as I saw it in-game, as high as a 7-1 underdog, and New Mexico State won that game in overtime. Those CUSA Tuesdays have been a little bit of wacko, and that one was very wacky in Las Cruces 2 nights ago. There you go, right there on the screen. See 12.5-point underdogs in that game against Louisiana Tech. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, Ryan and I will unveil our power rankings for the National Football League, and I will tell you, Ryan, I nearly had a new number 1.
Okay.
But because of one critical injury, and I think everyone knows what that injury is without me mentioning it, that one critical injury keeps a certain team at number 2 and keeps number 1 steady since the beginning of the season for me. We'll get both Ryan and I's top 10s when we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Cormac, Ryan, chat is active as always here today.
Yeah, we've got Joey B chiming in and Agent 87 as well as Vince Las Vegas. Pretty much all 3 of them on the Broncos tonight. Joey B asking if we like Cortland Sutton anytime touchdown or the defense, Denver defense anytime touchdown. No Surtain is out, but they can cause some turnover. So that was his questions on that one. Also feels like it's an underplay, a 23-10 type of game.
I guess Joey B got in a little bit after what we said. We're looking to go against Sutton, and we think the price is a little too short on both defensive special teams here tonight in order to bet that. And look, and this is a tough handicap game. Again, I do not think the Broncos, even with a 500 record, are really any good, and New Orleans is just so battered right now that it's tough to really look at them in any fashion other than just a battered, mediocre football team at the moment. All right, power rankings time. Let's go to it. Sean, you can throw mine up. 1 through 10 here going into week 7. We're a third of the way through here in the NFL season, and there we go. Kansas City remains at number 1. It didn't play last week, but because of the injury and season-ending nature of that broken leg for Aiden Hutchinson, I am very scared moving forward that Detroit's pass rush is not going to be good enough. Now, it may be good enough to win the NFC. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to beat either of the elite teams in the AFC, assuming Kansas City or Baltimore would be that matchup.
Right.
Again, a lot of games to be played, long time to go. They really need to trade for a high-end some sort of high-end pass rusher, whether it's overpaying for Crosby, whether it's calling the Jets up and trading for Hassan Reddick. They really should look at trading for some sort of pass rusher to replace Aiden Hutchinson, because other than that defense was awesome last week. Now, I think that has to do with Dallas as well.
Yeah.
And that offense, we know how good that offense is when they're right.
Yep.
As long as Jared Goff's
is
not
indoors.
Well, their whole schedule's basically indoors except for a trip to Chicago this year and a trip to Green Bay. That's basically it for their non-indoor games. And you know what? If you win the NFC North, guess what? You don't have to go outside at all. More likely than not in the NFC. And I mean, at this point, the only possible road trip that would even make remote sense
San Francisco
would be a trip out west to San Francisco. I think the Lions will finish ahead of them in the standings anyway, or a trip to Tampa Bay, where the weather is not
going to be
bad
just
at all.
fine. Yeah.
So, I think Detroit is sitting pretty right now, but long-term wise, they really need to find some sort of replacement for Hutchinson because it's not there on that roster at the moment. Baltimore's at 3. And I'll tell you this, Ryan, I think 1, 2, 3 have really set themselves apart from the league. Sorry, Viking backers or fans. I know they're 5, and I know Minnesota's 5-0. They're there at number 4. Even if they win this week, I don't know if I can elevate them further than 4, unless if one of those top 3 really comes back to earth at this rate. As well as Sam Darnold's played, I think you have a ceiling with Sam Darnold as your quarterback, and that's probably NFC title game at most. Even if you get the 1 seed, that's still probably the most you're getting from Minnesota. I don't think they're in a scenario where they can win an NFC championship or a Super Bowl, even with how good they have looked so far in the early goings. Now, the 2 teams that I think are probably, even though they're behind Minnesota at the moment, when the season is all said and done, I think will both end up in front of Minnesota. The Niners, much better last week against the Seattle team that I think has shown themselves to be who they really are after the 3-0 start. Started playing real teams, lost all 3 games, even though the Giants aren't really a real team, but you get the point. Niners just got to get healthy more so than anything. If they get healthy, if they get McCaffrey back, which we don't know if they will, they're clearly a top 5 team. Green Bay, that horrible interception Love threw against the Rams, I think woke them up, because since then, Love has looked as good as anyone in the NFL at the quarterback position. Domination of Arizona last week. They actually play number 7 on my list in Houston this week. Really good game. Whoever wins this game will be ahead of the other team in the rankings next week.
Okay.
Either Green Bay will stay in front of Houston or Houston will flip back in front. These teams are very, very close for me in my rankings. I moved Buffalo down. I want to see them with Amari Cooper, and then I have to figure out how to evaluate them. But after watching them on Monday night, still don't fully trust that defense. But getting Cooper is a big deal for them. They needed a real, true number 1 receiver for Josh Allen. Commanders, even though they lost, they'd stay at number 9. There's nothing that happened last week against Baltimore that makes me change how I look at them. They're a good football team, and Jaden Daniels is no flash in the pan. And at number 10, it was between Atlanta and Tampa. I just gave it to Atlanta just because they won head-to-head. And if their game was in a neutral field, Atlanta would be the smallest of favorites over Tampa, who comes in at number 11 for me on my list. Falcons 10, Tampa 11.
Okay. I'm largely in the same boat with almost every one of those teams in my top 10. So getting started, I'll go 10-1 on mine, but number 10, I do have the Washington Commanders, who you have at 9. They didn't move from 10. I know it was a loss this past week, but they proved that they can contend in games against real opponents. So they remain at 10. Number 9, I do have the Houston Texans. This does take into account no Nico Collins.
Yep.
If he was there, they would be 6. The asterisk is there at 6, so they would be 6, 7 right there. But yes, Houston Texans at 9, Atlanta at 8, 7, 8, 9, and 10 did not move from last week.
They're all basically close in your rankings. Yeah, anyway, pretty even.
Yeah. And then the Bills did move down from 5. I am very excited for what Amari Cooper can do in this offense. The Bills were the only team in football to not have a single receiver with over 26% of their air yards. The Cleveland Browns used Amari Cooper for 47% of their air yards. So if you add that kind of weapon into the Bills offense, that's just what that offense needs, and you get the injuries back on defense, they're going to be just fine. Number 5, I have the San Francisco 49ers, and the Green Bay Packers are really right here as well, but again, you're not going to see them above 13 in mine. But regular season, I would take Green Bay in that matchup. Postseason, taking San Francisco. It's just how that works with those two teams' histories with Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. Number 4, or 1 through 4, have not changed for me. I have the same kind of concern for the Detroit Lions losing Aiden Hutchinson. He was a big piece to their run stop defense as well, not just their pass rush. So I do agree with Jeff that they are going to need to make a trade acquisition, getting a pass rusher, whether it be Zadarius Smith, going to get Max Crosby and paying a ton. I don't think Cleveland is going to give up on Myles Garrett, even though they are selling.
Not happening.
But it would take a ton to get that one done. It's your championship window. Why not? So the Lions are going to have to make a move to make sure that they stay the top contender in the NFC. But for right now, that is my top 10 in the NFL.
You know, I'm going to just throw this out there real quick, Ryan, and I'm just going to say this. If you like Jared Goff to win the MVP, this is probably your final moment to do it.
Yeah.
Now, this kind of dovetails into looking ahead to this week in the NFL because Detroit goes to Minnesota in what is, I mean, there are a bunch of mega games this week where you got Green Bay and Houston, you have the Super Bowl rematch with Kansas City going to San Francisco, you have a good Monday night game with Baltimore. Well, there's 2 Monday night games this week, but Baltimore and Tampa is a good game. You have the intrigue with Pittsburgh now looking like they're going to start Russell Wilson.
Playing against Devontae Adams' first game back with Aaron Rodgers.
A Jet team that if they lose, their season is basically cooked. And I didn't even mention Seattle and Atlanta, which is actually low-key a very good game early. There are some very good games on the NFL card this week, and I want to start with Detroit and Minnesota, and I'm just going to dovetail what I just said into this. If Detroit goes on the road and beats previously undefeated Minnesota, more likely than not, what's the game flow? It's because Detroit's offense did not get slowed down by the Brian Flores confusing defense, and Jared Goff has another big day like he did in Dallas, which would then put Goff in a scenario where Goff has just been dominant the last few weeks, where you had the game on the Monday night against Seattle where he didn't throw an incomplete pass, did the bye week, so nothing impacted there, and then the demolition of Dallas a week ago. And here you are in this game with the Lions coming off that beatdown of the Cowboys, 2-point underdogs here in this game, Ryan, with a total of 50.5. If Jared Goff has a big game, Jared Goff's going to be sub 10-1 to win the MVP. You can get pushing 18-1, 17-1 right now still on Goff. I would take a flyer on that. This feels like the last moment that you can do it with Jared Goff as a potential MVP this year.
Well, so if we want to take a look at their schedule going forward, they play at home against Tennessee next week. Then they go to Green Bay. They go to Houston. And then they host Jacksonville, go to Indy, and host the Bears on Thanksgiving. So if they go into Minnesota and win this game, they're more than likely, they are going to be favored against Tennessee. They're more than likely going to win that game very easily. And then they have 2 tests on the road in Green Bay, on the road in Houston. I think those are going to be the 2 biggest points, biggest shifts in Jared Goff's MVP numbers if he does perform, at least in that first Packer game. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree that if you have an inkling to take Jared Goff to win MVP, now might be the best time.
I think this is basically it because you just mentioned the stretch. You see it on your screen. I mean, 3 road games against 3 teams that you and I both have in the top 10, and they are going to be considered top 10 teams across the board. Texans is a primetime game as well. You're running out of rope at this point. Now, again, the one thing as always with the MVP race, as we saw last year, Brock Purdy was minus 265 going into Christmas night against Baltimore. What happens? Purdy blows up. Baltimore wins. Lamar wasn't great in that game, but he was way better than Purdy. And Jackson ended up almost being unanimous in the MVP race last year. So that is always the problem, potentially, with the MVP markets.
Now that we're talking about it, if the Lions go into that game in Green Bay, and we're talking about Jared Goff beating the Vikings tonight, beating the Tennessee Titans next week, and kind of having that race, but then they don't look good against the Packers, or Jared Goff is outdueled by Jordan Love, what would Jordan Love's MVP chance be?
So I'm happy. I see. We stumbled into a nice little block here, my friend. So yeah, there's the NFC North is interesting for those reasons because I'm sure there are going to be people screaming at me saying, "What about Sam Darnold?" Again, I'm not convinced that Sam Darnold is going to be able to play at a high enough level for 17 straight games where he can win the MVP this year. But Jordan Love's interesting, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I mean, Jordan Love. The Packers went 2-0 in the games he didn't play. He looked awesome last week. We know MVP voters' memories are very short, Ryan, as I was illustrated by the point with Brock Purdy a year ago. Look, there's an argument there. Patrick Mahomes. Let's just go through the other choices here. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is not winning the MVP unless if Kansas City's offense improves to a level where they look like high end, and I don't think the voters want to give it to him.
Right.
It is. I know Rodgers did it a few years ago, but it is unbelievably difficult to win back-to-back MVPs. Just don't see Lamar doing it, and I think enough of the credit will go to Derrick Henry also for that offense.
Yes.
I don't think he wins it. The other 2 ones are Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud. Now, Allen, who has not thrown an interception yet this year, if he goes this year and ends up with like a 34-4 ratio, he has as good of an opportunity as anyone. Now, he's one of the favorites, if not the favorite in most shops right now.
Which, bringing it up, getting Amari Cooper now might be the best chance for that one.
So, Allen in that scenario, and look, I think for Houston, I just don't know if Houston's going to get respected enough by the national media for Stroud in order to win that award.
I agree with you.
So Daniels is not winning it. I know there'll be some who ask, what about him? He's not winning the MVP. A rookie's not winning the MVP unless if Washington somehow goes 13-4 and gets the 1 seed in the NFC. He's not winning the MVP. Yep. So to me, it's right now, I would bet Jared Goff. I like Detroit this week, and I'm kind of showing that. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it and talking it through, might take a piece of Jordan Love also because I like Green Bay this weekend against Houston.
22-1, Jordan Love.
Yeah, I think both of those guys, Love north of 20, Goff just a little bit shy of 20. Yep. I think those are both. These are times. Now look, of course, Minnesota could come out and beat Detroit, and Goff's numbers could balloon, and I could have timed it wrong. But you know what? That's the risk you somewhat take here in this MVP market.
And the Packers can lose at home to the Texans and lose at home to the Vikings.
They absolutely could. They absolutely could. They already got beat by Minnesota, as you said. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, Dwayne Colucci joins us, talking NFL, college football, and a lot more with our friend DC when we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick. Ryan, checking in with the chat here.
Yeah, we've got Not Sean in the chat wondering the Steelers beat the Falcons, so why are the Falcons in the top 10 and the Steelers aren't? But my point to that is they actually moved down five spots in my power rankings from the Russell Wilson to Justin Fields to Russell Wilson move, so I don't like that move. And then we have Risen Wave letting us know that the Thundering Herd are going to be focused versus Georgia State in the first half this week. Marshall has been a fast starting team in the first half, so take -6. It was -5 this morning. And the over 26.5 in the first half. Need Georgia State to get 7 to 10 points from Risen Wave. So
okay. And also, Sean, when you incorporate luck into things, you definitely move teams down as well. So we'll just throw that out there as well. All right, now joining us, our good friend Dwayne Colucci, of course, up at the Rampart, joins us right now. Dwayne, good to see you as always. Let's just dive in. This is not the most attractive football game here tonight. With the Broncos on the road at the Saints, 2.5, 37. You guys did touch 3 this morning. It did not last particularly long, but what are we looking at here with this one? Again, 3-3 Denver and 2-4 New Orleans.
We're looking at Dwayne standing on Rampart Boulevard with a sign, please bet tonight's NFL game. We're looking for some handle here, guys. But, Jeff, at least we got Dodgers and Mets tonight. I mean, that's the good thing. But, this is a game that's screaming for handle, one of the lower handle games, especially for an off night. The Thursday, Monday night games, Saturday night games. This is going to be one of the lowest by far. The only thing that'll exceed it is when I'm here at 5:30 a.m. next week. This weekend when you have the Patriots at Jacksonville, because nobody will be looking to bet on that either. But we did touch 3. Now we're back down to 2.5. Very tough game to handicap. I mean, I think Denver's defense has been the bright spot with Sean Payton's team. But outside of that, this is, I guess a rivalry of him playing against his former team, and he'll look to shut them down. But that shouldn't be too hard with the, backup quarterback situation there and no Derek Carr. So this is going to be, a game that not a lot of people are wagering on. I see, ticket count is favoring the Broncos, and probably a lot of teasers and parlays are making that case for the Broncos, but not one of the best games of the weekend so far.
Jerry, you have the sandwich board. You have the sandwich board for Dwayne there to go out in Rampart Boulevard. Please bet.
Definitely.
Dwayne, I'll give you $5 if you actually did that. That would be great. I'll just say this because you mentioned it, because we very rarely mention baseball on this show, but I'm going to right now because you mentioned it, where you have three of the 4 remaining teams, sorry, Cleveland, are mega public, heavy-handled teams.
Also, the largest payrolls in baseball.
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter when it comes to betting, Ryan. But you're looking at these 3 teams, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Mets. You're in a scenario here where, it makes sense that the NFL handle gets impacted a little bit because of these mega teams playing in baseball. But also, Dwayne, there could be a lot of Broncos-Dodgers parlays tonight, I would imagine. There'll be some Saints-Mets moneyline dog parlays that get played because of that tonight.
Yeah, and definitely to the earlier game, Cleveland and the Yankees as well. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of parlays, and that's what we look to attract. We're looking for handle. That's why I made that joke earlier on, but it's serious. That's what we live off of as bookmakers. So we do have three of the highest attracted handle teams in Major League Baseball that are playing today. So that will help definitely Denver and the Saints get a little more action. And that's what we're looking forward to. We're hopefully a more exciting game between the Dodgers and Mets tonight. Mets played, great defensively. Otherwise, it could have been a floodgate game. And you saw that Titanic home run by Ohtani. If he ever breaks out, the Dodgers are definitely going to be the favorites to win this World Series. They got solid pitching from Buehler as well, and that definitely adds to their, aura and their impact on the handle on that game. The Yankees are definitely going to be the popular pick when playing against Cleveland, regardless of where the game takes place. But yes, a lot of parlays will be on this game and teasers that are going into the college games as well tonight, and the college game Saturday and the pro game Sunday. So that's where you get the teaser action. But like you said, a lot of money line parlays when you're taking the dogs, maybe a little Cleveland money line going towards New Orleans or towards the Mets, and so forth, with the run lines on the Dodgers and the Yankees, the two favorites in these games.
Dwayne, I want to go to Sunday, and I want to go to a divisional matchup in the NFC North. The Lions in Minnesota taking on the Vikings. The Vikings coming off their bye week after winning against the Jets in London. We've seen that the Lions have won the last 3 of these games, 4 of the last 5. The Lions have also scored over 30 in 3 of the last 5, over 28 in all 5 of those matchups. Have you seen any particular side getting the majority of the money, and any side of the total as well?
Yeah, well, the ticket count is 2-1. I'm looking at it right now, Ryan. Everybody's taking the Lions. They're waiting for the Vikings to lose, in my opinion. But this team has been playing very well. Sam Darnold seems like the answer. He knows how to run an offense. They've beaten Green Bay already. So, Detroit is riding high after destroying my Cowboys, basically. But that was a banged-up Cowboy team, and we need to make sure that Detroit keeps the pedal to the metal. Now you're going again on the road, which is a very difficult scenario in the NFL. I like Minnesota in this spot. You're laying under a field goal. You're at home, coming off a bye week, whereas Detroit, definitely could have a possible emotional letdown, but I know their coaching staff is phenomenal, and they're going to really try not to make that happen. You have 2 MVP front runners as well with Goff and Darnold, believe it or not, in this matchup. So this could be a high-scoring affair. I mean, I'm looking at the total. So far, we haven't had anything that moves the needle, on the total betting, but definitely I could see a lot of over tickets, especially if they're backing the Lions in this spot, especially with teasers, and that will come to fruition. But I think that Minnesota has an excellent chance here. They just have to be not be complacent. They have to get off to that quick start that they've been doing all year and not fall victim to a second half collapse, which they showed signs that they could have done that, but they haven't yet. They've managed to win all these games. I like Minnesota in this game, believe it or not, guys.
I have a stat for this one. Shout out to Dante Cop Flem on Twitter for this stat, but teams that are undefeated.
Great handle there, Ryan.
Teams that are undefeated, playing at home, and coming off a bye are 9-0 all time and have won by an average of 19.8 points. The Vikings have also played 5 hours of football this season. They've led for 4 hours, 25 minutes, and 12 seconds. The only other teams in NFL history to lead for over 4 hours and 20 minutes through 5 weeks were the 1998 Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos and the 1999 Super Bowl champion St. Louis Rams.
Not bad. Good company there. Greatest show on turf in LA's last year in the National Football League. Those only 2 teams that were able to do that. Dwayne, we do have a Super Bowl rematch this week, and it's kind of funny because it's like you look at this slate, and I was saying this, we get this awful game to begin the week, and this week, I mean, this week
2 games.
This week, oh yeah, New England and Jacksonville sticks too. That is true.
2 games to start the week.
But Dwayne, I mean, this slate gets really good really quickly, and this is the nice middle of the day main course before. I know it's not the greatest of games, but Jets Steelers does have intrigue with two public teams. But Kansas City, an underdog here. One, it's as high as 2 in the market on the Niners for this one. We know Andy Reid doesn't lose off of bye weeks, only 2 career losses off the bye, Dwayne. Niners have the mini bye off that Thursday game. This looks to be a hell of a football game coming in Santa Clara with the Niners, the smallest of favorites here.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to get some great two-way handle on this game, and I love that. This is a hard game to handicap. Like you said, Reed never loses off a bye. San Francisco is looking to turn the corner now, finally, after a very, very rough start for the 49ers. And, the Chiefs, once again, are at the top of the AFC, in my opinion. A lot of injuries, though. You have to keep your eye on that. When it's going to take its toll with the wide receivers and Pacheco sitting on the sideline, they were not able to get, Adams or Cooper to complement Mahomes, but they're still the top team in the AFC, in my opinion. Baltimore is playing very well. Don't get me wrong. Buffalo as well. Now with the addition of Cooper, a lot to be settled, but Kansas City is still the top dog. I think the 49ers, though, are really going to have a chip on their shoulder in this game. They really have to start to get it moving if they want to win the NFC and grab that top spot. It's for the taking. There's a lot of mediocre teams, in my opinion, out there. Now, granted, Detroit is playing great, Minnesota, Green Bay, but that's all in one division. They could beat Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay, in my opinion, and the NFC least has nothing to offer right now. Sirianni and McCarthy are on the hot seat. Like you said earlier, I was listening to you, Jeff. It's hard for a rookie to win the MVP award as impressive as Jaden Daniels has been. So, Washington, definitely, they could get those jitters. Baltimore brought them back to reality this past weekend. So, I think the 49ers are really going to establish themselves in this game. But, the Chiefs, they get those calls. They get some of them phantom calls here and there. Everybody says they own the referees. We'll see if it plays out. This is a game now. It's on the road. We're looking at a 1-point spread, at the Rampart and South Point. 47 total. Great two-way action game, but I love it. It's almost a pick 'em. So I think the 49ers could eke it out by a field goal or more in this spot.
Okay. Well, I do want to go to 2 other teams that are contenders in their respective conferences, going to Wisconsin, the Texans and Packers. No Nico Collins for the Texans, which means Stephon Diggs is going to be the wide receiver 1 for Houston. Diggs has scored a touchdown in 8 straight games versus the Packers, 9 touchdowns in 10 games in his career against the Packers, 6 touchdowns as the wide receiver 1 versus the cornerback 1 in Jair Alexander. So what could be a big day for Stephon Diggs. Have you seen anything for a particular side? I know it's toggling the 2.5 and 3 or the total here. What do you see, Dwayne?
Most of those stats, Ryan, though, when he was playing in Minnesota, I have to believe. And, that's a totally different scenario right now. Now, without Nico Collins, who is one of the top wide receivers, in my opinion, or, on the cusp of becoming one, there's a double down situation now on Diggs. I understand he's a phenomenal player, but in my opinion, a quarterback, situation here, you got 2 massively talented quarterbacks, with Stroud and Love. I think he's underachieved a little, though, Stroud so far in this season. I think he really has to step up and avoid pressure. That's the whole thing. He seems to get happy feet in the pocket, if you ask me. Love is now coming into health. He got banged up in that first game of the season. This is a very, very difficult game to handicap. I don't really have an opinion in this game, but I don't think Diggs is going to just totally dominate Green Bay. There's some opportunities for him to really have a good game, but I think he's going to get somewhat shut down. I think they're going to know what to do, and they're going to have to rely on the running game. Pollard's going to have to do some damage, and some of these other guys for them to, control the game against Green Bay. Very tough game, though, like I said, to handicap. I'm not going to be putting my eggs in one basket here. Looking at a 2.5-point spread at the Rampart and South Point. Total, I believe, is 47 still, looking at it. But, you're laying points on the road here. It's definitely a tough spot. Green Bay's had some question marks at the wide receiver position, so that's why you're seeing them as an underdog. But they were a team that was pushing Minnesota to the brink, with Love coming back off the injury, and they almost forced a victory out of that. So this is a tough game to handicap.
Dwayne, we apologize. We have those lines flipped there. Green Bay favored by 2.5 in this game with the Texans.
Yeah, I didn't have my computer screen. I was shocked that it was going to that.
Yeah, no, that's on us. 2.5 with Green Bay favored on that one. All right, let's go to college. I want to hit the mega game before we get out of here. Georgia goes to Austin to take on Texas. Look, Dwayne, we've had 2 mega games so far this year where Alabama, Georgia, that delivered. Oregon, Ohio State last week, that delivered. Guess what? The underdogs are 2-0 so far in these mega games. And now Texas, who was an underdog during the summer when these games of the year were out, is now favored by 4.5 on this one. Kirby Smart has only been an underdog 12 times, by the way, since taking over at Georgia. He's won 7 of those games outright. That's 12, including this one. So 7 and 4 in the 11 that have already happened outright. Dwayne, where do you think this goes? And what do you think here in this one with the Horns 4.5 at home in this?
Man, this is a tough game, but Texas has played so well, and Georgia has somewhat let down a little bit, but, a tough game to handicap once again. Another phenomenal handle game that everybody's going to have their parlays and teasers on. I think we're going to get a little Georgia money, as it gets closer to game time, but Texas has been so flashy. It's unbelievable. They just blew them out in the Red River rivalry like we discussed. We knew that was going to come out. Georgia, losing to Alabama was not good. They were able to make up ground after falling behind, at a big deficit. But you saw Alabama was brought back down to earth real quick. So I don't know what to make of Georgia and the SEC currently. I think Texas is the better team. I would probably bet Texas, but I believe we're going to see a lot of late money on Georgia and a lot of teaser action on that SEC reputation. Everybody's enamored and loves that conference. They believe it's the best conference in America, and usually it is, but we're having a little change here now. Texas looks really good, guys. I got to like Texas in this spot.
Boy, it is so weird to see that many points going to Georgia. To
an SEC team.
No, I know. I look at this is a credit.
And the number one preseason.
Yeah, it's a credit to Texas and how good they have looked so far this year, where I don't think anyone argues that they're the number one team in the country. There's no argument from anyone, bookmaker or non-bookmaker, at this point. Again, 4.5. Dwayne, there are some 5s. I'm just curious.
I know.
I'm just curious where the point of resistance is. I think it is that 5, but as the 3 of us know, that is a dead number. Usually at
you hate
5.
that number. And when you get, if you could get teasing it up, you're getting 10.5 with Georgia on a 6-point teaser. So think about that. If it goes to 5, the dead number, then you're getting 11 with a world-class team like that. So this is why I'm anticipating a lot of teaser action with Georgia. And definitely it's going to come back down if we do go to that cusp of 5. The Sharps initially were betting on Texas. We're going to see how it goes. I like Texas in this spot. Like I said, they're at home. They dominated most of this season. Even if their starting quarterback goes down, you have an amicable backup quarterback from a great quarterback family. This is going to be an awesome game and one of the focal games of the weekend. I preach about it time and time again, and I know Jimmy did. Prior to the pandemic, the college handle would always start to creep up, believe it or not, on the NFL handle. I believe this game is going to be one of those games where it's going to exceed many of the NFL games on Sunday from a handle point of view. And that's what we love as bookmakers at the Rampart and South Point. I know Chris loves it, and this is one of those matchups that we really were looking forward to. Like you said, the games of the year, you had a lot of people that were laying the points with Georgia. Now you could get it. So, this is definitely a unique situation. And that on the other hand, Texas is definitely going to be geared up for this game. They want to prove to themselves that they are the number one team in the country, which they are right now, like you said, Jeff, without a doubt. But a lot of football to be played, and we're going to see this is one of the best matchups of the weekend. Tennessee and Alabama also matching up. Great college slate this weekend, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it's funny that Alabama, Tennessee's the undercard, but it is. Bama's 3. Bama's 3 in that game. As I mentioned on Monday, I have a lot of questions about Tennessee moving forward, but that's another great one where the bettors have bet Alabama to a 3-point favorite from the opener of 2.5. He's Dwayne Colucci. Get him up at the Rampart Race and Sportsbook Director up there, NY Bookie Dwayne on the tweets. Dwayne, thank you as always, man. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, guys. Definitely. Let's enjoy the football this weekend. Enjoy the great baseball. NHL season is in full swing. We're going to have NBA starting up real quick. That was a great game the other night at T-Mobile. Everything is going full circle. Sports betting is unbelievable. And then you got the Breeders' Cup in November, guys. So that caps off a great, horse racing season as well. Definitely the time of the season to be in a race at Sportsbook, especially the South Point or the Rampart. We do it top notch. You guys know that.
Perfect time for some winners.
It's a perfect time for some winners indeed. Dwayne, thank you as always. We will see you again next week. Ryan, that's all the time you and I have as well. We are back tomorrow on this show at 2 o'clock. Myself, Vinny Magliulo will be here at 2 o'clock to get you ready for Football Frenzy, to get you ready for the weekend, 2 to 4 for the 2-hour show. Ryan, good work as always. Vince, Jerry, and Sean keeping us in line from behind the glass. We'll see you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.